In all of the stories of the dark side, there are figures who dominate by raw power, lords who crush armies and rule by fear alone. But every so often a figure emerges whose greatest weapon is neither strength nor conquest, but rather philosophy. Darth Traya was such a figure. Long before the rise of the Sith Empire, before Order 66 became a symbol of the Jedi's fall, there was another catastrophe, a purge so complete, so efficient, that it rivaled the extinction wrought by Palpatine and Vader. At the center of it stood a woman whom many called the last true philosopher of the Sith Order. This is the story of how Darth Traya, once Traya, transformed two of the most monstrous Sith Lords in history into instruments of her will, and came closer to annihilating the Jedi than any Sith since Exar Kun. Before she was Darth Traya, she was simply Traya, a respected Jedi historian and a mentor to some of the Order's most promising students. Among them was Revan himself, a prodigy who would one day become both savior and betrayer of the Republic. Traya was not a typical Jedi though. Even in the temple halls, she was known for her relentless curiosity and her refusal to accept dogma without question. She challenged the Council's certainties, probing the mysteries of the Force in ways that made others uneasy. When the Mandalorian Wars erupted, Traya's teachings inspired Revan to act. While the Council dithered, Revan and Malak led the Republic's forces to victory, only to fall to the dark side deep in the unknown regions. Many in the Order blamed Traya personally for Revan's corruption. She was branded an unsuitable teacher, an agitator, and ultimately, an exile. But exile was not enough to satisfy her new questions now. Haunted by the failure of her greatest student, Traya turned her search for understanding inward. She resolved to uncover what had transformed Revan so completely. What in the dark corners of the galaxy could compel a Jedi to embrace conquest and slaughter? Traya's journey took her beyond the Outer Rim, to a place steeped in darkness older than any living memory. The Trayus Academy, a wound in the Force. At the edge of known space was Malachor V, a world forever scarred by Revan's superweapon, the mass shadow generator. Its surface was cracked, broken, ugly, its skies a swirl of ash and hate. But beneath the ruined crust, hidden in the shadows, lay the Trayus Academy. The Trayus Academy was not merely an ancient Sith temple, it was a pure nexus of darkside energy, a wound in the Force. According to the oldest records, some dating back to the earliest Sith exiles, the Academy was built atop a chasm of pure darkside potential. Its halls were etched with the wisdom of the original Sith, those who had fled the Republic and mingled their bloodlines with the red-skinned pure species. Here, generations of Sith had refined their understanding of pain, domination, and betrayal. Most importantly, betrayal. The Academy's archives contained holocrons so profane that even Revan had sealed parts of the complex away, fearing that the knowledge within could corrupt any who studied it. Among its most famous teachings were rituals to sever a Jedi's connection to the Force itself, to bind spirits to inanimate objects, and to create monstrous extensions of a Sith Lord's will. It was said that simply dwelling in the Academy's core too long would unravel one's identity, replacing discipline with pure hunger. Yet for Traya, the Academy was not merely a danger, it was her answer. It was in these shadows where she began to understand that the Force itself may be the true oppressor in all things, an unseen hand guiding all life towards endless cycles of conflict, sadness, regret, betrayal, and in the end, death. And here she discovered something horrific. She came to believe that to understand the Force fully was to risk annihilation, and so she embraced that annihilation willingly. It was there, in the abyss of Malachor, that Traya was reborn as Darth Traya, the Lord of Betrayal. And here she would craft a philosophy that would tame monsters. As she immersed herself in the Trayus Academy's lore and teachings, Traya came to see that the Sith's greatest weakness was not hatred or ambition, but short-sightedness. Too many Sith reveled in conquest without understanding why they fought in the first place. Too many craved power without any true purpose. It was deep in the Academy's vaults that she found records of past Sith Lords whose empires had collapsed under the pure weight of their own arrogance. Naga Sadow, Exar Kun, Marka Ragnos. To Traya, they were not just cautionary tales, but evidence that all Sith failed for the same reason. They mistook their appetites for their destiny. Where others saw monsters, Traya saw expressions of the Force's manipulation, a trap. This was the philosophy that would allow her to control even the most broken and the most dangerous of Sith, the most powerful of Sith. Darth Traya was not alone in this dark academy. She would find Sion first. He was less than a man, more of a corpse animated by an emotion: hatred. His body was a lattice work of fractures, held together by will alone. Every moment of his existence was agony, yet the creature embraced that agony as proof of his power. Most would have recoiled in horror or pity, but Traya did neither. She saw in him a purity of purpose that she could shape. Darth Sion's endurance was not simply self-harm, it was a testament to the idea that no law of nature could bind the will. Where others saw decay, Darth Traya saw conviction. And then there was another, Darth Nihilus, a being who had become an echo, a hollow void in the Force, endlessly devouring life to sustain his existence. Nihilus was no longer truly human. His hunger was so vast that entire worlds vanished into nothingness at his passing. To most Sith, he would be an abomination, a creature without reason or restraint, something to be put down. But to Traya, she saw something else. She understood that Nihilus was the logical conclusion of the dark side's promise. If passion leads to power, and power corrupts absolutely, then Nihilus was that final expression. Power is an all-consuming hunger. She did not fear him, and she did not flinch in his emptiness. Instead, she offered him a purpose beyond consumption. The Sith Triumvirate, a philosophy made flesh. Traya did what no Sith before her had ever done. She united Sion and Nihilus not as rivals or as tools, but as complements in a greater design. She taught them that they were manifestations of a same truth. Nihilus was hunger without end, Sion was pain without release, and Traya herself was betrayal made manifest, a teacher who would inevitably be cast aside by her students, as all mentors must be. Together they were the Triumvirate, a trinity of the apocalypse. To Sion she gave focus. He no longer wandered in an aimless slaughter. He became an executioner with a purpose, to hunt the last Jedi and to prove that endurance was superior to enlightenment. To Nihilus she offered strategy. She taught him how to wield his hunger selectively, how to devastate worlds that harbored Jedi. Rather than dissipate his strength in random feastings, she taught him to gorge on a buffet. Most of all, she gave them both meaning. In the Trayus Academy depths, they ceased to be monsters. They became a unified force, an extinction event with a philosophy. And all of it led to the near extinction of the Jedi. It was here that history often understates what Darth Traya did, her brilliance. Many believe the Jedi were nearly destroyed by Revan alone and the Civil Wars. In truth though, the Republic and the Jedi Order had begun to recover in the years after Malachor V's devastation. Survivors rebuilt enclaves on Dantooine, Qatar, and on Coruscant. But Traya would not allow this peace. Guided by her teachings, Nihilus and Sion orchestrated a campaign of terror unlike anything the galaxy had seen in generations. Nihilus's greatest atrocity, his work of terror, came at Qatar. There, he sensed a gathering of Jedi who had hoped to restore the Order. As his flagship the Ravager entered their orbit, he unleashed his hunger. In a single moment, the Miraluka world died. Every life was consumed, save for one, Visas Mar, who Nihilus would spare as a tool. The Jedi Council, already fragmented, was decimated. Those who survived went deep into exile and hiding. Meanwhile, Darth Sion waged a shadow war, stalking Jedi survivors, breaking them, adding their deaths to his litany of suffering. Traya had had no armies, no clones, no imperial bureaucracy, no senate, yet she had accomplished everything neatly and as thorough as Order 66, with nothing but pure ideology and two instruments of ruin. This was her greatest triumph, proof that a single mind armed with understanding could achieve devastation equal to Sidious himself. But now we reach her greatest lesson, the inevitability of betrayal. In the end, Traya was too honest in her philosophy. She taught Sion that strength lay in rejecting all attachments, including loyalty. She taught Nihilus that hunger could never be satiated by servitude. Inevitably, they turned her lessons against her. In the Trayus Academy core, Sion and Nihilus conspired to end Traya's rule. They used her rituals against her, severed her connection to the Force, a punishment as cruel as it was poetic. The woman who had once taught Revan, who had found purpose in the abyss, was cast out by her own creations. Yet even in defeat, she remained unbowed. Exile was her birthright, and in exile she would find a new purpose again. She would guide the Jedi exile, another wound in the Force, towards understanding the same truths that had defined her life. In the centuries that followed, few remembered the Triumvirate's purge. The Republic survived, the Jedi eventually would rebuild. But Traya's legacy endures among those who study the dark side. She proved that the most dangerous Sith are not those who conquer by their blade, nor those who consume for pleasure. The most dangerous Sith are those who understand. Those who can look into the abyss and not see chaos, but see design. Traya did not merely unite monsters. She created a philosophy so compelling that it nearly destroyed the Jedi Order. She orchestrated a catastrophe with no fleet, no Senate, no Death Star. All she needed were two broken things: a wound in the Force, and the conviction that betrayal is inevitable. In this, Darth Traya stands beside the greatest Sith Lords, an intellect as formidable as Bane, as patient as Sidious, as tragic as Revan. Perhaps the galaxy is fortunate that Sion and Nihilus betrayed her when they did, for had she endured, there may have been no Jedi left at all. Anyway guys, I hope you've enjoyed this additional installment of Darth Traya lore, and if you would like us to look at more Traya lore, as well as her time as a Jedi, and perhaps her plan to destroy the Force itself, let us know in the comments down below. And may clarity guide you where the Force blinds others. Question everything, even the Force itself. And remember, it is no ally, only hunger.